March of 2010, and we were both going through some divorces, and we spoke and met, and we never looked back. I mean, it was just, it was something so magical, so wonderful, so quickly, that there was, we know that it was in his plan, and we never know where he's going to take us.
So you knew right away once you started
away.
talking?
Right, that March 10th of 2010, I knew right away.
So what happened after that?
Well, we
started a courtship? And
yes, and that went on for about 3 years. We got engaged in 2013, actually, and the stroke occurred it was July, first week in July 6th, 7th of 2013. So
almost 8 years?
It was 8 years this
You know
year.
what, let's talk about that day. You know, you hear all kinds of, you know, rumors and stuff, but let's really talk what happened about. You were touring, correct? And you were a virus, or you were ill, or
it was, he just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
He said we were leaving the following Tuesday for Canada, 2 weeks in Canada. And we had a long meeting all day on a Saturday. It was right after the 4th of July. And we had a long meeting with some folks from Nashville there at the house in Tioga, Texas, where we live. And he said, I don't feel real good. I can't breathe good. The day before, he'd worked out 3 hours. I mean, he was a workout. He loved working out. So, but he said, I don't feel it. And he never complained about not feeling good, because he took such good care of his body. So I said, well, let's go to the emergency room and see what's going on, if it's pneumonia or whatever it is, because he said he couldn't breathe. They said, well, it's walking pneumonia, and they gave us, a breathing treatment and an antibiotic and sent us home. Well, the next morning he woke up and he said, I can't breathe, I can't get any air at all. And I said, that's really strange. So we went back to the hospital. He had double pneumonia. Both lungs were full.
Didn't admit you.
I know. Well, I think that they just figured if it was, what they didn't know, though, it was not the lungs, it was the heart. There was viral cardiomyopathy. There was a virus that hit the heart. And so the heart was shutting down. And that's another awareness thing that I want people to understand, is when the heart is stressing, then the lungs start stressing. And you know this as a nurse. And vice versa.
Everything
and if people
starts backing up.
Yes, and if people have pneumonia and they're admitted for pneumonia, somebody needs to be watching that heart, because the heart's going to stress too. They work so hand in hand.
Were they watching the heart then?
Not at all. Not until we got to the third hospital, which was the heart hospital.
So you went 3 hospitals.
Yeah, quickly though. It's not like it was time. You know, it wasn't days. We're talking hours here. So we ended up at the heart hospital at 5 o'clock in the morning, and Dr. Michael Mack met us there, and he said, we have to put him on ECMO or we're going to lose him. And after 72 hours, brought him out of the coma to find that he had flatlined that he had stroked when he flatlined.
Now, he did cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And that's, and you had just walked out the room, correct? And you weren't there when it happened.
Well, they were going to do the Impella procedure to assist the heart. That was, and when they started to do the Impella procedure is when he flatlined. So yes, I had just walked out of the room so that they could do this procedure. They didn't want me in there.
I think God was protecting you, so you wouldn't even, wouldn't see that part. I can't imagine being in the room when that happened.
Yeah. When we were then at the 4th hospital, which was Vanderbilt, and he had relapsed. There was other complications.
Oh, it was during the rehab.
No, it was, well, we came here for rehab, but he ended up, they said he had food inhalation, but it ended up being serraceous pseudomonas and staph.
Okay.
And so that started a whole new set of problems.
So after the cardiac arrest, then you found out that you had a stroke. Tell me about your faith at that time.
That will really test your faith. Because at that point, and I know he was talking to God. I asked him, I said, were you praying? Were you talking to God? And he said, yeah, all the time. Yeah. And even though he couldn't talk to us, and sometimes in our silence, our heart still speaks. So I know that he was talking with God, and I know I was talking with God. You know, there was a lot of lonely hours in the hospital room, and a lot of time to get really, really close to God and try to understand, you know, why. And we don't ever understand really why, but he has his reasons. Sometimes storms of life, they are not necessarily sent to devastate us. Sometimes they just clear a path. So at that point you go, okay, so we're going to take a different road. We're going to run a different road than what we're used to, because God knows that he had been on that road a lot of years. So it's just a different road that we take now. So as far as getting out of the danger zone, I don't think until the day we walked out of our final rehab at Baylor Hospital, Dallas, because we'd left Vanderbilt and went back to Dallas as soon as we could. But when we were walking out of that hospital, I say hotel lobby because we live there, the hospital lobby, and I had him in the wheelchair, and he had his arm up, one arm, and he was like, whee, you know, he was so happy. And that was a hallelujah moment for us, because they said that he was going to probably be hospital, you know, he'd be in and out of the hospital the rest of his life and probably bedridden. And I said, that's okay, but I don't believe it, you know, and we did not believe that. He had made it through so many impossible, miraculous moments in the last 6 months. And it's because God carried him through them, and I know he did, or else he wouldn't still be with us. And, you know, to God be the glory for all of that, because, you know, with doctor's wisdoms and his perseverance and his warrior spirit, and, you know, and I wasn't giving up either, and I was the doctor's worst nightmare. They were like, I wish she'd leave, but we'll keep him. But it was just, you know, it was just the two of us, and, you know, it's one of those things that it can either tear you apart or it can bring you so much closer together. And I felt so madly in love with this man that was such a fighter laying in that bed.
You could have walked away. You could have just, you know, and you didn't. You ended up getting married.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Oh, well, it was a couple of years after we got out of the hospital, and it was Christmas, and we had talked about it under the Christmas tree, and our daughter Kavanaugh had worked with him and asked him, or told him again, or they worked on how to ask me to marry him again, because, you know, we didn't know, it wasn't the same as it was in 2013, obviously. And so he did, right under the Christmas tree, and that was in December of 14, and so March of 15 we got married.
March of 15.
Yeah, real quietly. It was wonderful.
Beautiful. You have a beautiful love story.